There is a silent thief living inside your daily routine. It doesn't break into your home. It doesn't threaten you with violence. It doesn't even announce itself. But every single day, it steals from you. It steals your potential. It steals your peace. It steals the prosperity that was meant to flow into your life like a river. And the most dangerous part, you invite it in. You feed it. You protect it, because this thief doesn't look like an enemy. It looks like comfort. It looks like a harmless habit. It looks like something everyone else is doing, so it must be normal, right? Wrong. The ancient Jewish sages understood something that most people today have completely forgotten. Your habits are not neutral. They are either opening doors to blessing or quietly closing them. There is no middle ground. Every single action you repeat, every thought pattern you allow to run on autopilot, every small choice you make without awareness is either aligning you with the flow of divine abundance or pulling you further away from it. In the Talmud, there is a teaching that shakes people to their core when they truly understand it. A person is led on the path they wish to walk. But here's the part most people miss. The path you walk is not determined by what you want. It's determined by what you do. Your desires mean nothing if your habits contradict them. You say you want prosperity. You say you want financial freedom. You say you want peace of mind and generational wealth. But every day you practice 8 specific habits that are silently, invisibly, systematically blocking every door to the life you're praying for. And the cruelest part, these habits don't feel dangerous. They feel normal. They feel like everyone else's life. They feel safe. But the Jewish wisdom teaches us something profound. The majority is usually wrong about prosperity. The path of the masses leads to the results of the masses. And if you look around, you'll see that most people are struggling, stressed, and stuck in the same patterns year after year. Today, you're going to discover the 8 invisible habits that are keeping you locked in financial and spiritual struggle. Not because you're unlucky, not because the world is against you, but because no one ever taught you the ancient code hidden inside Jewish wisdom about how prosperity actually works. This is not about motivation. This is not about positive thinking. This is about the laws that govern reality itself, laws that were written into the fabric of creation, laws that work whether you believe in them or not. And when you align your daily habits with these laws, everything changes, not overnight, but surely, deeply, permanently. By the end of this video, you will see your own life with new eyes. You will recognize the exact habits that have been sabotaging you, and more importantly, you will know exactly how to replace them with the habits that open the gates to blessing, abundance, and peace. But I need to warn you, this is not comfortable wisdom. This is not what most people want to hear, because it requires something most people are not willing to give: responsibility. The Jewish sages teach that before heaven grants prosperity, it first grants vision. And vision is painful because it forces you to see the truth about yourself. If you're ready to see that truth, if you're ready to stop blaming circumstances and start building a life aligned with divine law, then stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to discover has transformed lives for thousands of years, and it can transform yours too. Before we continue, I want to invite you to be part of this community. Subscribe to this channel if you're serious about applying ancient Jewish wisdom to your modern life. And in the comments below, write the name of the country you're watching from. I want to know where in the world this wisdom is reaching. Let's build a global community of people committed to truth, growth, and prosperity. Now let's begin with the first truth you need to understand. Most of what you believe about prosperity is completely wrong. Here's the lie you've been told your entire life. Prosperity is about working harder, getting lucky, or being in the right place at the right time. And because you've been told this lie so many times, you've built your entire life around it. You chase opportunities, you look for shortcuts, you pray for miracles, but nothing changes. Why? Because you're trying to harvest fruit from a tree you never planted. The Jewish sages teach us through the concept of zera, which means seed. Every single result in your life is the fruit of a seed you planted in the past. Not yesterday, not last week, but months, even years ago. And here's the part that destroys most people's illusions. You cannot harvest what you did not plant. You cannot reap prosperity if you've been planting the seeds of chaos, distraction, complaint, and fear. You look at your bank account and you feel frustrated. You look at your career and you feel stuck. You look at your life and you wonder why nothing is growing. But the answer is not in the future. The answer is in the field of your daily habits. Because that field is either full of weeds or full of seeds. And most people's fields are completely overrun with weeds they don't even recognize. In the book of Mishlei, King Solomon writes, "Guard your heart above all else, for from it flow the springs of life." Do you understand what this means? Your heart, your mind, your inner world is the source. Everything you see in your external reality is simply the overflow of what has been growing inside you. If your inner world is chaotic, anxious, bitter, and distracted, your outer world will reflect that chaos perfectly. Most people live backwards. They try to change their circumstances while keeping their habits the same. They want a different harvest while planting the exact same seeds. And then they call themselves unlucky. They call themselves cursed. They blame the economy. They blame their family. They blame God. But the Jewish wisdom is clear. Heaven does not bless chaos. Heaven blesses order. And order begins in your mind. Not in your calendar, not in your bank account, in your mind. There's a profound teaching in Kabbalah about the relationship between light and vessel. Light represents divine abundance, blessing, prosperity. It's always flowing, it never stops. But light cannot fill a broken vessel. If your vessel is full of cracks, full of holes, full of destructive habits, the light pours in and immediately pours out. You receive blessings and lose them. You get opportunities and sabotage them. You make money and waste it, not because you're cursed, but because your vessel is broken. And here's the truth that most people will never accept. You are the one who broke it. Not your parents, not your past, you. Through years of unconscious, destructive, invisible habits that you never questioned because everyone around you was doing the same things. The Jewish mindset teaches something radical. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of them. Every single day you are choosing, you are planting, you are building. And the life you have right now is the perfect reflection of the habits you've been practicing for years. This is why motivation doesn't work. This is why affirmations don't work. Because you're trying to change the fruit without changing the root. You're trying to change your reality without changing your habits, and that is impossible. The Talmud teaches a person does not stumble unless the way has been smoothed for them beforehand. In other words, your fall was not sudden. Your struggle was not random. It was built, habit by habit, choice by choice, day by day. And the good news is this: if you built it, you can rebuild it. But first, you have to see the habits that are destroying you, the habits you've been protecting, the habits you've been calling normal. Let's begin. Before we reveal the 8 habits that are blocking your prosperity, you need to understand one foundational principle of Jewish wisdom. A principle so powerful that once you truly grasp it, your entire life will change. This principle is called Bechira, which means free will. Most people think they understand free will. They think it means, I can do whatever I want. But that's not what the Jewish sages teach. Free will, according to the Torah and the Talmud, is not the ability to do anything. It's the ability to choose your response to everything. You don't control what happens to you. You don't control the economy. You don't control other people's decisions. You don't control the weather, the government, or the circumstances you were born into. But you control one thing completely: your habits, your thoughts, your focus, your daily actions. And here's the part that changes everything. God does not intervene in your habits. He gave you complete authority over your inner world. He gave you the garden of your mind, and he said, you decide what grows here. You decide what you plant. You decide what you water. You decide what you allow to take root. This is why prayer without action is empty. This is why faith without discipline is powerless. Because heaven responds to alignment, not to begging. Heaven multiplies what you've already started. But if you haven't started anything, if you're still planting the same destructive seeds every day, there is nothing for heaven to multiply. The prophet says, return to me, and I will return to you. But return means change. It means turn around. It means stop walking the path of chaos and start walking the path of order. And order is not complicated. Order is simple. It's the daily repetition of aligned habits. In Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, there is a teaching that every person serious about prosperity must memorize. Who is rich? One who is satisfied with their portion. Most people read this and think it means be grateful for what you have, but that's a shallow reading. The deeper meaning is this. Wealth begins in the mind. If your mind is constantly chasing, comparing, complaining and craving what you don't have, you will never experience prosperity, no matter how much money you accumulate. Prosperity is not a number in your bank account. Prosperity is a state of alignment. It's when your habits, your thoughts, and your actions are flowing in the same direction as divine law. And when you reach that state, money follows, opportunities follow, peace follows, not because you're lucky, but because you're finally in harmony with how reality actually works. The Jewish sages teach that there are spiritual laws that govern prosperity, just like there are physical laws that govern nature. You don't argue with gravity, you don't complain about it, you simply align with it. And the same is true for the spiritual laws of abundance. These laws are not opinions, they are not suggestions, they are absolute, and they've been written in the Torah, the Talmud, and the wisdom of the sages for thousands of years. But most people never learn them, and the ones who do learn them treat them like philosophy, like interesting ideas to think about, instead of treating them like instructions for how to build a life. Here's the law most people refuse to accept. Cause and effect are not separate. They are one. Your current reality is the effect of your past habits. Your future reality will be the effect of your current habits. There is no gap. There is no randomness. There is perfect justice. The Hebrew word for world is olam, which comes from the root word ne'elam, meaning hidden. The world hides the truth. It hides the connection between your habits and your results. It makes you think that your struggle is external, when the real battle has always been internal. And the 8 habits we're about to reveal are the hidden enemies that have been silently destroying your vessel, blocking your light, and keeping you trapped in a cycle you can't escape until now. Let me tell you about a man named David, 37 years old, married, 2 children, living in a small apartment in a city that felt like it was crushing him slowly. He worked 60 hours a week. He did everything he was supposed to do. He showed up, he tried. But every month it was the same story, bills piling up, credit cards maxed out, no savings, no peace, just survival. David wasn't lazy, he wasn't reckless, he wasn't addicted to anything, he was just stuck. And the worst part was, he didn't understand why. He prayed every night. He asked God for help. He asked for a better job, for a breakthrough, for relief. But nothing changed. And slowly a dark thought began to grow in his mind. Maybe I'm cursed. Maybe prosperity just isn't meant for me. One evening, exhausted and hopeless, David was sitting in a small synagogue after prayers. Most people had left. But there was an older man, a teacher, someone David had seen before but never spoken to. The man's name was Rabbi Shimon. He was in his 70s, calm, quiet, with eyes that seemed to see through people. Rabbi Shimon approached David and said something strange. "You're carrying a heavy weight, but it's not the weight you think it is." David looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" The rabbi sat down next to him. "You think your problem is money, but your problem is your mind. You've built a prison inside yourself, and every day you strengthen the bars." David felt defensive. "I work hard. I do everything I can. What else am I supposed to do?" Rabbi Shimon smiled gently. "Hard work is not the same as aligned work. You're planting seeds in a field full of weeds, and then you wonder why nothing grows." David didn't understand, but something in the rabbi's tone made him listen. Over the next 3 months, Rabbi Shimon met with David once a week, and slowly, painfully, he began to show David the invisible habits that were destroying his life. Not obvious habits, not addiction or laziness, but subtle, silent, socially acceptable habits that everyone around him was also practicing. The first habit the rabbi pointed out was complaint. David complained constantly about his boss, about the cost of living, about the government, about his neighbors. He thought this was normal. Everyone complains, right? But Rabbi Shimon explained something David had never considered. Every complaint is a seed of lack. When you complain, you are focusing your mind, your energy, and your creative power on what you don't want. And the law of the universe is clear. What you focus on expands. The second habit was comparison. David spent hours every week scrolling through social media, looking at other people's lives, other people's success, other people's vacations. And every time he did, he felt worse. He felt behind. He felt inadequate. Rabbi Shimon called this poisoning your own well. He explained that when you compare, you are rejecting your own portion. And when you reject your portion, heaven cannot expand it. The third habit was distraction. David's mind was never still. He was always consuming videos, news, articles, opinions. He thought this was staying informed, but Rabbi Shimon showed him the truth. A distracted mind cannot receive clarity. And without clarity, you cannot make the decisions that lead to prosperity. You just react. You drift. You survive. The fourth habit was spending before earning. David had normalized debt. He had credit cards he used like income. He bought things he couldn't afford because he believed he deserved comfort now, and he'd figure out payment later. But Rabbi Shimon explained the spiritual law. When you spend what you don't have, you are declaring to the universe that you don't trust the process. You're saying, "I need this now because I don't believe more is coming," and the universe responds accordingly. The fifth habit was blame. Every time something went wrong, David had a reason. It was someone else's fault, the economy, his upbringing, his boss, his wife. Rabbi Shimon said, "When you blame, you give away your power, because if it's not your fault, then it's not in your control. And if it's not in your control, you cannot change it." The sixth habit was impatience. David wanted results immediately. He started projects and abandoned them. He tried new strategies and gave up after 2 weeks. Rabbi Shimon taught him, the Jewish mindset is built on patience. Abraham waited 25 years for a son. Joseph waited 13 years in slavery before becoming viceroy. Prosperity doesn't come to the quick. It comes to the consistent. The seventh habit was consuming more than creating. David spent his free time watching, scrolling, and entertaining himself. He never built anything. He never learned anything deeply. He never invested in his own growth. Rabbi Shimon said, "You cannot harvest what you don't plant, and entertainment is not planting." The eighth habit, the most dangerous of all, was living unconsciously. David never questioned his routines. He never examined his thoughts. He just repeated the same day over and over, expecting different results. Rabbi Shimon said, "This is the definition of madness, and it's the habit of the majority." David was shaken. He saw himself clearly for the first time, and it hurt. But Rabbi Shimon didn't leave him in pain. He gave him a new path, not a fast path, not an easy path, but a true path. He told David, "For the next 90 days you will practice 8 new habits, one for each of the habits you're going to eliminate. You will not see immediate results, but you will feel something shifting inside you, and that shift is the beginning of everything." David agreed. And for 90 days he followed the rabbi's instructions exactly. He stopped complaining and started declaring gratitude. He stopped comparing and started focusing on his own portion. He stopped distracting himself and started sitting in silence every morning. He stopped spending impulsively and started tracking every dollar. He stopped blaming and started taking full responsibility. He stopped quitting early and started committing to long-term growth. He stopped consuming and started creating. And most importantly, he stopped living unconsciously and started examining every habit, every thought, every choice. And something happened. Not a miracle, but a shift. After 90 days, David didn't have more money yet, but he had more peace, more clarity, more control. And 6 months later, opportunities began to appear. A promotion, a side project that generated income, a sudden refund he wasn't expecting. Small things, but consistent things. 2 years later, David's life was unrecognizable. Not because he got lucky, but because he changed the field. He removed the weeds and planted new seeds, and heaven multiplied what he had started. Now that you've seen David's story, let's go deeper into the core principle that governs everything we've been discussing. This principle is found throughout Jewish wisdom, but it's most clearly expressed in a single line from the Torah. Beware lest your heart be deceived. Your habits are not random. They are the expression of what your heart truly believes. And most people's hearts have been deceived. They've been taught to believe that prosperity comes from external sources, a better job, a lucky break, an inheritance, winning the lottery. But the Torah teaches the opposite. Prosperity comes from internal alignment. When your habits align with divine law, prosperity flows naturally. Not because you're special, not because God loves you more, but because you've stopped blocking the flow. You've repaired your vessel, you've cleaned the channel, and now what was always trying to reach you can finally get through. The 8 habits we've discussed are not moral failures. They are spiritual blockages. They are not sins in the traditional sense. They are misalignments. And misalignment creates friction. Friction creates resistance. Resistance creates struggle. And struggle creates the illusion that prosperity is far away, when in reality it's right here, waiting for you to remove the obstacles. This is why most people never escape their financial struggles. Not because they don't work hard, not because they don't want prosperity, but because they keep practicing the exact habits that create blockage, and then they pray for the blockage to be removed. But heaven doesn't remove what you keep building. The Jewish sages teach a profound concept called hishtadlut, which means effort. But it's not just any effort, it's aligned effort. It's the kind of effort that works with the laws of creation, not against them. When you practice hishtadlut, you're not forcing, you're not struggling, you're flowing, you're planting in season, you're watering at the right time, you're waiting with patience, and the harvest comes naturally. But most people practice the opposite. They work hard in the wrong direction. They plant seeds in winter and wonder why nothing grows. They water weeds and wonder why their garden is full of chaos. And then they say, "I tried everything. Nothing works." But trying everything without alignment is just exhausting yourself while staying in the same place. Here's the truth. The 8 habits that block prosperity are invisible because they're normalized. Everyone around you is practicing them. Your family, your friends, your co-workers, even the people you admire, and because everyone is doing them, you assume they must be fine. But the Jewish wisdom teaches us to question the majority, to examine what is normal, to test what is accepted, because most people are struggling, and if you do what most people do, you will get what most people get. Prosperity is not for the lucky few. Prosperity is for those who align, and alignment begins with awareness. You cannot change what you cannot see. This is why we're going through each habit carefully, not to shame you, not to make you feel guilty, but to give you vision. Because once you see the habit, you have the power to change it. And once you change the habit, the results will follow. Not instantly, but inevitably. The next section will walk you through 3 of the most powerful mental principles from Jewish wisdom that directly counteract these destructive habits. These are not theories, these are practices, and if you apply them, your life will change. Principle 1. Gratitude. Over complaint. In the Jewish tradition, the very first words spoken upon waking are Modeh Ani, which means I give thanks. Not a request, not a complaint. Thanks. Before you even know what the day will bring, you declare gratitude. Why? Because gratitude is the opposite of lack. Complaint is a declaration that you don't have enough. Gratitude is a declaration that you have been given a gift. The Talmud teaches that one who eats without blessing is like one who steals. Because when you don't acknowledge the source, you disconnect yourself from the flow. Complaint works the same way. When you complain, you are rejecting the gift of the present moment. You are saying, this is not enough, this is not good. And the universe hears that declaration and responds by giving you more reasons to complain. Most people think complaint is harmless. It's just venting, right? It's just expressing frustration. But Jewish wisdom teaches that words create reality. The Hebrew word for thing is dava, which also means word. Things and words are connected. What you speak, you create. Here's the error most people make. They wait to feel grateful. They say, I'll be grateful when I have more money. I'll be grateful when my situation improves. But that's backwards. Gratitude is not a response to abundance. Gratitude is the key that unlocks abundance. You must be grateful first, not because you're pretending, but because even in struggle, there is something to acknowledge. Breath, life, another chance, a lesson, growth. The long-term impact of complaint is devastating. It trains your mind to focus on lack, and where your focus goes, your energy flows. If you focus on lack, you create more lack. If you focus on gratitude, you create space for more blessing. It's not magic, it's a spiritual law. Practical application. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you look at the news, before you think about your problems, say one thing you're grateful for, out loud, with intention. Do this for 30 days. And watch how your mind begins to shift. Principle 2, focus over distraction. In the book of Mishlei, it says, above all that you guard, guard your heart, for from it are the sources of life. The Hebrew word for heart, lev, also means mind. Your mind is the control center of your entire existence, and most people have lost control of it. The modern world is designed to distract you. Every app, every notification, every headline, every video, it's all designed to pull your attention away from what matters and scatter it across 1,000 meaningless things. And most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're just staying informed. They think they're just relaxing. But what they're actually doing is training their mind to be weak, reactive, and incapable of deep focus. Jewish wisdom teaches that the mind is like a garden. If you don't intentionally plant what you want, weeds will grow automatically. Distraction is the weed, and it grows fast. It chokes out clarity. It chokes out creativity. It chokes out the ability to hear the quiet voice of wisdom that lives inside you. Here's the error most people make. They think distraction is harmless because it feels good in the moment. It feels like relief. It feels like escape. But what you're escaping from is the very work that would set you free. Deep thinking, deep learning, deep creation. These are the activities that build prosperity, but they require focus, and focus requires discipline. The long-term impact of distraction is spiritual poverty. You become a consumer instead of a creator. You become reactive instead of intentional. You spend your entire life responding to other people's agendas, other people's content, other people's priorities. And at the end, you look back and realize you built nothing. You created nothing. You just existed. Practical application. Choose 1 hour every day where you are completely unreachable. No phone, no internet, no distractions. Use that hour to think, to plan, to create, or to study. This one practice alone will put you ahead of 95% of people, because 95% of people cannot sit with themselves for 1 hour without distraction. Principle 3, responsibility over blame. There is a concept in Jewish law called kavanah, which means intention, but it also means responsibility. You are responsible for your intentions. You are responsible for your actions. You are responsible for your results, not your parents, not your circumstances, not the world. You. This is the most difficult principle for most people to accept, because it's easier to blame. Blame gives you an excuse. Blame lets you stay stuck without feeling guilty. Blame makes you the victim. And victims don't have to change, but Jewish wisdom destroys this illusion. The Torah teaches that every single person stands before God individually, not as part of a group, not as part of a family, individually. And when you stand there, you cannot point to anyone else. You cannot say, it was them. You can only account for yourself. Here's the error most people make. They think that acknowledging responsibility means accepting guilt or shame. But that's not what responsibility is. Responsibility is power. If it's your fault, then it's in your control. If it's in your control, you can change it. Blame takes away your power. Responsibility gives it back. The long-term impact of blame is paralysis. You become a passive observer of your own life. You wait for things to change. You wait for someone to save you. You wait for luck. And while you wait, years pass, opportunities pass, life passes. Practical application. For the next 7 days, eliminate the word "but" from your explanations. When something goes wrong, don't say, "I tried," but just say, "I tried. Here's what I'll do differently." Remove the excuse, take the responsibility, and watch how quickly your mind shifts from victim to creator. Now we come to the principle that most people reject, the principle that separates those who transform from those who stay stuck forever. This principle is called savlanut in Hebrew, which means patience. But not the passive kind of patience where you just wait and hope. Active patience. The kind of patience that keeps planting even when you don't see results yet. In the Torah, there's a law about trees. When you plant a fruit tree, you're not allowed to eat its fruit for the first 3 years. Even though the tree produces fruit, you must leave it. Why? Because the tree is still building its roots. If you take the fruit too early, you weaken the tree. But if you wait, if you let the tree establish itself deeply, it will produce fruit for generations. This is the principle most people violate. They want immediate results. They start a business and expect profit in 30 days. They change a habit and expect transformation in a week. They pray and expect an answer by morning. And when they don't see immediate results, they quit. They say it doesn't work. They say the system is broken. They say they're unlucky. But the Jewish sages teach the righteous live by faith. And faith is not believing in miracles. Faith is trusting the process even when you can't see the fruit yet. Faith is continuing to plant even when the field looks empty. Faith is watering the seed even when nothing has broken through the soil. Here's why this principle is rejected by most people. It requires humility. You have to admit that you don't control the timeline. You have to admit that your effort today might not pay off until next year. You have to admit that some blessings take time to mature. And in a world that promises instant results, instant gratification, instant success, this message feels like an insult. But it's the truth. Every single person you admire, every single success story you respect, went through a season of invisible growth, a season where they were working, planting, building, and nothing was showing yet. Most people quit during this season. They call it failure. But it wasn't failure, it was preparation. The Kabbalah teaches that there are two types of time: revealed time and concealed time. Revealed time is when you can see the results. Concealed time is when the roots are growing underground. Both are equally important. But most people only value revealed time. They only believe in what they can see, and so they abandon the process before the breakthrough. If you take nothing else from this teaching, take this. Do not measure your progress by visible results alone. Measure it by consistency. If you're showing up every day, if you're practicing the aligned habits, if you're planting the right seeds, the harvest is already decided. It's just not visible yet. The ones who quit early never know how close they were. Don't be one of them. So here we are. You've seen the 8 habits that silently block prosperity. You've seen the story of David, who transformed his life not through luck, but through aligned habits. You've learned 3 powerful principles from Jewish wisdom: gratitude over complaint, focus over distraction, responsibility over blame. And you've faced the hardest truth of all: transformation takes time. Now the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment, and you didn't watch this video to be entertained. You watched it because somewhere inside you, you know your life can be different. You know you're capable of more. You know there's a version of your future where you're free, where you're prosperous, where you're at peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're aligned. That future is not far away. It's not reserved for special people. It's available to you right now. Today, the moment you decide to stop practicing the habits that block and start practicing the habits that open. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You wake up without anxiety. You look at your finances without fear. You make decisions with clarity. You move through your day with purpose. You go to sleep with peace, not because you won the lottery, not because you got lucky, but because you rebuilt the foundation, because you repaired your vessel. Because you aligned your life with the laws that govern prosperity. This is not a fantasy. This is what happens when you apply ancient wisdom to modern life. This is what happens when you stop waiting for permission and start taking responsibility. This is what happens when you trust the process and stay consistent even when results aren't visible yet. The Jewish sages teach that every generation has the responsibility to pass wisdom to the next. You are part of that chain. What you learn, you teach. What you build, you pass down. The prosperity you create is not just for you, it's for your children, your grandchildren, your entire lineage. You are not alone in this journey. You are part of a community that values truth over comfort, growth over stagnation, and alignment over shortcuts. This is just the beginning. If this resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. We're building a global community of people committed to applying Jewish wisdom to everyday life. And in the comments, tell me, which of these 8 habits do you recognize in your own life? Let's grow together. Let's learn together. And let's build prosperity the right way, one aligned habit at a time. Welcome to the community. Let's walk this path together.